43. If we can get started. Everybody doing okay today? Take that as yes.
Yes.
Carlos gives me a thumbs up. It's a little dark in here because half the lights aren't working. I don't know what's going on. But actually the camera doesn't look that bad. If you're wondering why it's all shadowy, that's why. Lights right over me aren't working. Okay. Oh, let me turn on the overhead projector. And my one person in the actual room, Korean. You pick the projector. Okay, so I thought I'd start going over the quiz a little bit because this week you have your exam. It'll be very, very similar. So let me see here. Bring this. Quick for Brandon to get in here. Come on, Brandon, you can do it. Okay. Okay, so here's the stats on the quiz. I'm just going to go through the ones where there was a fairly high degree of not getting it right. So, what's this one? We'll start here. Negative newsletters often include apologies. Tips for these apologies include being sincere, showing good judgment. So all of that up to there was fine with the last part, and not accepting responsibility for the problem. And I was kind of surprised that there was anything wrong here. Most of the workplace messages you write will probably deal with routine matters that require straightforward answers using the correct method. Yeah, I think this was just because lately we've been focusing on the finer details that I had forgotten that the first things we covered are the most common. Okay, that was good, that was good, that was good. Oh, everybody got that. That was okay. Okay, this one, not so good. Which part of your letters are readers likely to find the most interesting and read first? So maybe this is a bad question because what do you read first? Yeah, well, the salutation, the subject line you read first, but is that the most interesting thing? Hardly. But yeah, I won't do that question again. Okay, this one. Yeesh. Which of the following would be the most effective closing statement in a routine action request letter? Now I can kind of see, some of these, what's the most, what's the best, I'm giving you some that are all potentially true. I want you to find the most one. So I can see why some people would answer different things. So you want the call to action. So we know that kind of gets rid of a couple of these. And thanks in advance. We kind of didn't really cover that this semester, but last semester that was wordy opening, trite business phrase. So we would have picked this one. So probably everybody that had 156 got this, and everybody who didn't probably picked that one. There's a lot of answers here. Another one is kind of wordy. This one, my name is, that's one we also studied last time, is a wordy opening. So that's why this one comes right to the point. It wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad.
For that one, I didn't read the whole question correctly when I did it, when I answered it, so I got it wrong.
Okay, well, lesson learned there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That was good. That was good. Okay, this one. Enrico must send a bad news message to a customer telling the customer that a product she ordered is no longer available. When writing his message, what should Enrico do first? So yeah, I can see why you would say analyze the bad news and its effects on his business. Because yeah, if we're using like 3x3 technique, first thing is to analyze your audience. So maybe this is another one I could have worded a little bit better. But I was thinking of like, what do you do first as far as in your message? So writing the buffer statement comes first. That one was good. That one was good. That one was good. So other than that, it was good. So yeah, I have revised the exam questions to maybe for some of these best or most things, I made some of the other answers like pretty obviously not the best choice. Okay, so that was the quiz. Oh, some feedback from last week. I have some notes. So I know we already kind of went over this before, but I kind of went over it very quickly, whatever. Still seems to be some issues identifying collective noun versus plural noun in some cases. And geese was one on there, and I know Carlos asked about this last time, but a number of people said that geese was a collective noun on the exam. And I was like, why are they saying that? So again, we'll go over this. Collective means groups acting as one unit. I also kind of give the idea of it sort of a container for things inside. So goose is just an irregular noun plural. Not geeses, it's goose. But the question that was asked last time, and I put this also as a announcement for last week. Isn't geese a collective noun? No, because geese doesn't contain things. Geese is just plural. It just means more than one goose. So it's not a container or unit or acting as one. But it brought up what I thought is an interesting thing that there's a whole list of collective nouns for animals. So you can take a look at this. Okay, so yeah, names for animals, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard some of these, but they're just, some of them are crazy. And there's an interesting history to this that I won't go into about much. I won't go into it much, but it was like way back in the day, like in the 1700s or something. Some guy decided he was just going to make up all these names for groups of animals, and he wrote a book about it. Nobody even read it or whatever. And then for some reason, like way later, like in the late 1800s, somebody picked up this book and they thought it was super cool, and it just like caught fire in like English, high society, and they went crazy with it. But like pretty much every animal has a unique name for its collective noun. And obviously, some of them like a flock of birds, right? But some of these are crazy. Like a buffalo is a gang or obstinacy. What's another one? I like ferrets. Where's the ferret one? A business of ferrets. So here's the geese one. A gaggle, a flock, a skein when in flight. A tower of giraffes. Anyway, you get the idea. A leap of leopards. So that, if that helps you remember like what a collective noun is, great. So I went over this before, but I'll do it again. If you're just not sure, here's a couple of tricks you can use that might help you figure out if it's collective or plural. So the first one I think that works almost always is, can you add of blank to the noun? So like a gaggle of geese. Okay, must be collective, right? Because of things are inside of it. But if I said a geese of, I can't do that. I can't answer that one. So obviously geese is not the collective one. And the other thing you can do is, as I mentioned before, singular collective nouns can be made plural. We can have gaggles of geese if we had a bunch of different gaggles out there. So try to see if you can make it plural. If it's already a plural noun, you can't make it more plural. So, here's some examples. Team, teams, herd, herds. But if it's already plural, geeses, I can't do that. So that's some tricks you can use to try to test. Is this collective or is this just a regular plural? Any questions on that stuff? All right, let's get into week 6. So this is part 2 of persuasive messaging. What we're going to do is we're going to compose 2 different persuasive memos, one flowing downwards, one flowing upwards, and we'll discuss what that means. And then we're going to identify persuasive techniques that are used in advertising. And I know there's been some discussion about, I can never tell if I'm supposed to use indirect versus direct message strategy. So I got a short little assignment on trying to identify those. And then for the grammar part, last week we did plural nouns. So this week we're going to do the possessive nouns and pronouns. And what we're going to do is the usual. We're going to go through all the module things. We're going to do those 3 assignments. And we're going to go through the possessive noun thing. And there's a thing we'll do in class there. We'll have a bunch of wrong ones. You got to make them right. There's a discussion, and then there's exam number 1. Exams are just like the CABT quizzes. They're timed. You only get 1 shot at it. If you have accommodations, your time's already been extended. So yes, again, make sure you have time set aside, nice quiet place before you begin. But it should be very similar to CABT quiz 1. All right, the reading assignment. Second part. Okay, so yeah, this is an interesting thing that's happened, I don't know, fairly recently. In the old days, so you all know what an org chart is? The chart of the organization and who reports to who. In the old days, those org charts were very tall. So you had like the CEO at the top, and then he had people that reported to him, and they had people that reported to them, and so on and so on and so on, many tiers. And the problem with that, we discussed last semester, is this thing called decision latency, right? So down at the bottom where the worker bees are, if there's a problem, they're probably the ones that are going to see it first. They'll report it up this chain. That takes a long time. And then somebody up here makes a decision who really isn't even plugged into the problem space. And that decision has to flow all the way back down again. So that latency of how long it takes a decision to be made is bad. So more recently, what businesses have done is they've flattened their hierarchies, which means for the worker bees down here, they're more empowered to make decisions, and that distance between the bottom tiers of the org chart and the top tiers is very short, sometimes only 1 hop. So that latency is very short. Okay, so why am I talking about this? Well, because you're now empowered down farther in the org chart, you can make more decisions on your own. And you have, because of all the company intranets and intranets, you have the information you need to make those decisions. So yeah, to reduce the turnover of employees, like I don't like this job because I don't feel empowered kind of thing.
That's not really balanced.
More and more companies are adopting a more open and egalitarian organizational structure so that workers are more empowered. And that has an effect on the writing strategy for using persuasive messages. And the people at the top, the CEOs, the C-suite things, they increasingly rely on both writing persuasive messages down the hierarchy, and they also rely on persuasive messages being written to them up the hierarchy. So down the hierarchy, we call that messages flowing downward. And that would be instructions or directives moving downward from supervisors to subordinates. They usually require a little bit of persuasion. So that your normal stuff like information about new procedures, new equipment, customer service things, those all still can use the direct strategy, and you can just state the problem immediately. You don't need persuasion necessarily. But if your organization is asking their employees to do things maybe normally considered outside their scope, or where they don't see a benefit for themselves, that's when you want to kick in these persuasive request techniques that we talked about last time. Okay, so that's from the bosses or supervisors, wherever they sit in the hierarchy, down. So when you're doing that, you really need to pay attention to your tone. You don't want to be authoritarian, right? You want to use warm tones, convey a caring attitude, be honest, accurate, give evidence. Okay, now what about the other direction? This is from down below in the hierarchy back up to the CEO or C-suite people. We call that a message flowing upward. There, your techniques should be, you want to provide the facts, the figures, the evidence. It always helps if you can say, how this is going to save money, or, what are the direct benefits to the business. That's more persuasive than just saying, oh, we can get a better deal on this widget, or just explaining, how the thing works. So the techniques you want to use there, again, pay attention to your tone. You don't want to, so like with the boss with the flowing downward, you don't want to be authoritarian. Well, here you don't want to sort of overstep your authority. You don't want to say, we're going to do this, or you got to do this. It's like, we suggest, we recommend. You don't want to sound pushy or argumentative. Use conversational, professional tone. So this is probably where more of the persuasive techniques come into play. Okay, so that's that. Message is flowing downward, message is flowing upwards, persuasion. Okay, next part is, if your job is something to do with sales, this persuasion stuff is very important. So, as you probably already know, the best sales messages use some persuasion to promote their products and services. And you may think again, wow, this is the age of the internet. Snail mail, that's obsolete. But as it turns out, for sales letters, direct mail still is the king. People respond to direct mail far more often than they do to an email, as far as sales offers are concerned. For whatever reasons, neuroscience-based studies show that just a physical piece of mail has a greater emotional impact than just some email digital thing. And of course, you don't necessarily get spam with a direct mail, but you get a lot of junk mail. But I think we can all agree you get way more spam in email than you get junk in snail mail. Okay, so the key thing here is the targeting, and this is why just what powers Google. Google sells advertising, Google gets eyeballs, and they do that by targeting, because they know all about you. They know what you're looking at. They know if you're using Gmail, they know what your mail topics are that you're sending. They just know all about you, at least the robots do. And so they can target ads specifically to people. And that's a huge thing for advertisers, because before that, all they could do was sort of shotgun out, like a radio or television ad to the whole location, hoping that their net would, capture some targeted people. But now we can get way more targeted. And this is even true with direct mail, because now with digital publishing, you can do a, snail mail, direct mail blast out, but they can be individually printed with individual names, and there can be some targeting going on there. And if you ever took the Word class here, if you haven't taken the Word class yet, if you have, you remember that you can make these rules in your Word documents for mail merge, where you can have conditionals. If they are a member of the gym, then put this offer in the letter, else put this offer in the letter. So yeah, obviously there's professional people who just do this, these direct mail campaigns, and these are the kind of things that they do come up with their message. So like we had spam with email, with direct mail, we have junk mail. But still, I mean, these are some impressive numbers. 79% of consumers act on direct mail immediately, whereas only 45% deal with email right away. And this is kind of what I was talking about, that today you can do this, you can use technology to better targeting. Okay, so this is the one big takeaway here, I guess, is this acronym AIDA. Gain attention, build interest, elicit desire, motivate action. Those are the 4 steps that you should have in a persuasive sales message. And we're going to go into that, and there's an exercise in that. So in your opening, that's where you do the first A, gain attention. How do you do that? Here's some ideas. Offer them something valuable. You know, you've seen, I mean, ads are kind of a useful thing to discuss in class because you've seen so many of them. You have examples, right? So I'm sure you've seen many ads that start off in their opening with get 2 for 1 or buy 1, get 1 free, or, you know, offer them something of value. Promise a benefit to the reader, ask them a question. Start with a quotation, proverb, or fact. Identify a product feature and its benefit, opening with a testimonial or startling statement. These shoe inserts have saved my life. I'm a mailman and I walk 1,000,000 miles a day. You've seen those things, right? Provide a personalized action setting. Okay, so then in the body, so that's how you got their attention. Then in the body, it's where you build interest. That's the second letter in the AI. And here's some ideas for doing that. Just obviously describe the central selling points, but you can also make rational appeals that use your reason and intellect. But it seems that more often people make emotional appeals related to status, ego, or sense of feelings. It's like, how would you feel if you had this product? And I think most of the time they combine a bit of both. You know, they tell you, oh, this is a great car, it's got these features, it can go off-road, whatever, but then they try to also couple in there, how would you feel driving this car? Wouldn't you feel great? So identify features, describe what your product is or does, and describe benefits, what's in it for you, right? Okay, here's some more things to elicit desire, the next one. Use the testimonials, that's people saying, oh, I did use this, it works great for me. Money back guarantees, free samples. For a lot of tech stuff, they have these test results. You can look at these studies that we did comparing our product to their product and see how we outperform them. They're usually all baked and fake, but it's often done. And then if you remember last week, we talked about the reactance thing. People get pushback or they start to feel like they're not in an atmosphere of free choice. So here's some techniques you can use to kind of minimize that. Totally mentioning the price. Show the price in small units, like, you know, price per week or price per dose or whatever it is. Demonstrate how the reader actually saves money by them giving you their money. So like the example here, if you subscribe for 2 years rather than 1, you get a better deal. And then obviously they compare your prices with those of the competitor. All right, now in the closing is where you motivate the action. Often called the call to action. Here's some ideas you can do there. Offer a gift if they sign in to your website and give you their email address. You can give them something for free. Promise an incentive, kind of the same thing. Limit the offer. Answer now. If you don't do it now, you might not get this thing. Set a deadline. We're gonna only have this deal until the end of the month. Right? We're going out of business. I remember there's this furniture store around here. And I swear, every ad they ever do on television for the last 10 years has said, we're going out of business. Guarantee satisfaction, money back guarantee. Okay, so putting it all together, yeah, direct mail costs money, right? Every piece costs money, whereas email basically costs nothing. And I think that's part of the problem, why we get so much spam and so much email we don't care about. We're just overwhelmed by it. It's because it doesn't have much of a barrier to entry for people to do. Whereas direct mail, yeah, you got to be a going concern. You got to be, have a budget, making a profit, have a real product to be able to afford to have a direct mail campaign and just a postage alone. And again, the direct mail is still king of marketing because of these things. It can be personalized, directed, and you can have more of a complete message than in digital media. Okay, but we do obviously use, email and digital techniques to also do sales messages. And, these obviously do these things. You can get new customers, keep existing one, encourage future sales, cut your costs with email marketing, even though it's not as effective. It's faster. You can create and send a promotion half the time. So if there's some special event that comes up, I don't know, say a Super Bowl or something, and that's not a very good example because you would have had plenty of time to prepare for that. Something happens and you're like, oh, we could, capitalize on this by offering this offer. That's something you can do with email that you really can't do with direct mail because just the time it will take to create the thing and get it to the person is going to be weeks. But like I mentioned, it's all about targeting, and you got to target your email as well, which means you have to do a bunch of research on the market. And usually the software that you're using to do this has a bunch of tools where you can use certain keywords and stuff to try to target. Like if they have this keyword in their profile, send them this thing.
Are we allowed to send people emails if we don't know them?
If you're a company, yeah, sure. Don't you get a lot of emails from people you never met trying to
Well,
sell you?
that's why they usually go in my spam. But
Yeah, well, again, that's why, back earlier, direct mail is way more effective. And like I said, it's probably because there's a lower barrier to entry for sending email than there is for direct mail. It's just you get too much. Okay, where are we? Writing successful emails. So before you do it, just make sure you know what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, doesn't that go for anything? And you need to adapt to the audience to make your message heard. This is really just more targeting. So here's some questions you can ask when you're sort of, revising your draft that you're going to send out for your email sales message. It's like, pretend you're the customer and why should I do your thing? What's in it for me? What's in it for you? Who cares about this thing? So you want to make sure you answer those things. A few more little tips, guidelines. The subject line is really critical for the email, not so much for the direct mail. You want to, like they called in the old newspaper days, above the fold, right? You want it to be before they see anything else. Main information first. Short, conversational, focused, testimonials always work. And there's laws about opting out. So Carlos, you asked, people send me emails I don't know. Yeah, they can send them to you, but they are required by law, although they don't always do it, to have a link at the bottom, which is probably going to be in really small type that says unsubscribe. Gives you a chance to opt out of their mailing list.
and they can do that with I think they do that with our phones too, right?
I think any unsolicited message, both text and email, there's a law called CAN spam. Kind of funny name.
Yeah.
That requires those people to put these opt-out messages in the bottom. Like I said, they're usually hidden like way down at the bottom in really small type. Okay.
Nice.
I think that's it for that. Okay, like I said, we're gonna have two assignments, writing assignments here for the persuasive message, one flowing downwards, one flowing upwards. I'm gonna leave you to do this on your own, but we'll go through the directions here. So I'm pretty much just reiterating the things that we just went through on the slides, just so you have it right here when you're trying to do your assignment. So I don't think I need to go over those, we just did. And what I'm gonna do is I give you this scenario, and then you're gonna use Word and the business letter template to write your flowing downwards persuasive message. So you're a boss or supervisor or something. So here's a scenario. You're an office manager with a Phoenix footwear and apparel company, and you need to write a memo to persuade your shipping employees to reduce the express delivery fees. Your FedEx and other shipping bills have been sky high, and you feel that staff members are overusing these services to please their favorite distributors. They're not considering other options. You know, they're in the shipping. They're like, oh, why do I care? I'm going to, send it as fast as possible, make the customer happy. They may not realize the cost associated with that. So what you want to do is you want to persuade them to consider their other options. So if they plan ahead, you want to persuade them to plan ahead, allow enough time so they can use UPS or FedEx ground services, which is going to be 3 to 5 days versus the overnight or 1 day, but it's much cheaper. Do they even consider whether the recipient would mind waiting a few days? When would overnight shipping be justified? Not in all cases, like they seem to be doing now. So you'd like to reduce the overnight delivery services voluntarily by 50%. So this is the key thing here. Why is this a persuasive message and not just one of the other message types that we've already looked at? Because it's not something they have to do. You're trying to sort of talk them into why should you voluntarily take extra time and think about this and maybe make your customer not as happy by adding 3 to 5 days to their shipping. So you want to persuade them to reduce the fees by 50% over the next 2 months. So unless a sizable reduction occurs, the CEO threatens severe restrictions in the future. Now you wouldn't want to say it like that, right? And when you're persuading, but that's the reality. So you have to figure out a way to rephrase that in a persuasive manner. Okay, so the usual thing, you're going to open Word, this business template letter, you're going to take this scenario and you're going to craft your message flowing downwards to your shipping employees. Drop it on the right rocket icon. Any questions about that? All right. Bet you can't guess what the next one is. Message flowing upwards. Same drill. I've copied and pasted the main points for the message flowing upwards here, just so you have them right when you're doing your writing. Okay, same thing, same business letter template in Word. Here's this scenario. So you work at Omni Hotels. They rank top in highest in guest satisfaction of upscale hotel chains. They operate 60 luxury hotels. Yeah. Have all this fancy stuff. Yeah. One signature amenity it has offered for years is a bowl of free apples in the lobby. However, providing apples costs hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for all of these hotels, 60 luxury hotels. So, always thinking out more efficiency, executives are debating whether to cut out the apple benefits as a way to save money with minimal impact on guests. They pride themselves on delivering superior service through this thing they call the Power of One, a service program that provides associates, that would be you, the training and authority to make decisions that exceed the expectations of the guests. So here's another example of we're squishing that org chart down. You, as an employee at this hotel, through this Power of One program they have, are empowered to make decisions on your own. So as an Omni associate, you are disturbed that the hotel is considering giving up its free apples. You hope executives will find other ways to trim costs, such as purchasing food in smaller amounts to reduce waste or cutting the hours of its lobby cafes. So your task is you're going to apply this power of one thing that they have, and you're going to express your views on that to the management by writing a persuasive, flowing upward message to this guy, Richard Johnson. He's the vice president of operations. And here's his address. Should you write a letter or should you write an email? So I'm asking you to do it as a Word document. But if you thought maybe an email would be better, just put a note in your Word document saying, I think this should be an email because XYZ. All right, so same thing. Drop it on the rocket. Hit submit. Okay. And then we have a third assignment concerning the AIDA strategies for sales messages. Again, I'm just reiterating here what the AI and DA mean. You know, sometimes you'll see online instead of attention, they'll say awareness. The vast majority of examples say gain attention, but there are some that say gain awareness, like brand awareness. It's kind of the same thing. Here's a website that's got some examples if you want to look at them. So your assignment is, you can either select an advertisement you've seen on your own, or I'm giving you a few down here that you can use as examples. And you're going to look at these ads, just pick one, look at the ad, study it to see how do they do the AIDA thing, AIDA thing. And so answer these questions. What techniques did they use to get their attention? Is that effective in their opening? What is the central selling point? What's the interest part, right? Does it use rational, emotional, or a combo of those appeals? Do they suggest any benefits that the reader will get? What are they? How did they build the interest in the product or service? How do they handle the price? Do they even mention it at all? How do they anticipate any resistance? Did they offer any counter arguments? How about the call to action? Is it very clear? What is the action that they're asking the reader to take? How do they make it easy for them to make that action? And what is the motivation to make them act on it now? So I was wondering, like, what examples could I pick? So this pop chip one is an example of a print ad. It's online, so you can see it, but it's a print ad. And then I was trying to think of like the most iconic sort of ads over the last years. So there's the old Apple Think Different ad, and this links to the actual ad. There's the Matthew McConaughey Lincoln car ads, and then Nike, that just do it. The interesting thing about some of these, Nike in particular, is in almost every single one of their ads, they don't even talk about shoes. They don't focus on the shoes. So would that be a rational or an emotional appeal? They're not even telling you about their product. They're telling you how you would feel if you use their product, right? So that'd be emotional. All right, any questions on that one? We could do this one in class. This is a little short little one. This is just, I put this in because people were saying, I'm not sure about direct and indirect strategies. So here's just 6 examples. And which strategy would you use for each of these 6 things? Indirect or direct? So if you want to, we can do this in class. And copy this text and put it in the text box. I can do it too, but you know the drill by now. I will tell you that some of these are obvious. Some of these are like, okay, yeah, I think so. And then some of them are like, I'm not sure, right? So let's take the first one. A request from one company to another to verify the previous employment record of a job applicant. What do we think? Direct strategy or indirect strategy?
Direct.
Which one?
Direct.
Direct. Yeah, it's just a regular, everyday, vanilla. Are you expecting like negative feedback? Like, are they gonna come back to you and go, why are you sending me this verification of employment? Well, no, it's like, ask a question, get an answer. Direct. All right, number 2, an announcement that must convince employees to stop smoking, start exercising, and opt for a healthy diet to lower healthcare expenses and reduce absenteeism.
Indirect.
Indirect, yeah, because you're sort of have to persuade them into doing something that's sort of outside their normal sphere of activity. You're going to have to convince them that there's something in it for them. All right, number 3, an email message to employees telling that the company parking lot will be closed for 1 week while it's being resurfaced. Okay, you could go either way on this one. The question to ask yourself is, what's the impact to them going to be? If it's going to be like bad, like there's no other parking anywhere, okay, you might want to go indirect. But if it's just like, look, the company parking lot's going to be closed, park over in the other parking lot or whatever, that could be direct. So I think this one depends. I'll take either answer for that one. What do you guys think?
Direct.
You would say direct? Yeah, I kind of go that way. It's like, look, we're just letting you know a fact. Things being resurfaced. Don't park there. Park somewhere else. Oh, well, how about this one? A letter to a cleaning service demanding a refund for sealing a dirty tiled floor and damaging a fresh paint job. What do we think? Direct or indirect?
Direct.
I would say direct. Shouldn't be any concern that they're going to push back on this. It's like, look, you screwed up. Going to be a direct claim. How about number 5, a request for information about a wireless office network?
Direct.
Direct, no reason to be indirect there. Like, I'm just asking you for information. Number 6, a letter to a grocery store requesting permission to display posters advertising a college fundraising car wash. Direct or indirect?
Indirect.
Indirect. Yeah, because you're asking, please, can you do me a favor? Any questions on that stuff? Does it make sense, or is it still like, I just can't tell when I should use one or the other? Silence, I'll take that as yes.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, you seem to have them all. Okay. Okay, it's 10:26. We're into the.
What was number 2 again? Sorry, that was indirect, right?
Oh, I don't know. Let me go back.
I mean, they're pretty.
The one you have to convince, that's the key thing, convince, right? You have to convince employees to stop smoking, exercising, whatever. So that would be indirect.
Okay, yeah, it seems pretty. That was the homework. That was the assignment. Just answer them.
Yeah, I mean, we just did it. If you remember,
Okay.
if you don't,
I got it. Yeah, I got it.
afterwards. Yeah, and
Turned it in.
sometimes they're not that obvious. It depends. I need more information. So like the one about the parking lot, it's like, well, I think that normally would be a direct thing, but it could be indirect if in that particular circumstance, that was a horrible thing. Oh my God, people are going to be freaking out about this thing. Okay. All right, so Carlos, that got us up to 10:27, which is so close to 10:30. I think now we'll go ahead and take the break before we start in on the grammar thing. Okay, we're back. All right, so grammar lesson for this week is possessive nouns and pronouns. Last week we did plural nouns. And if you remember, I had that big, don't use the apostrophe for the plural nouns. But this week, yay, you get to use the apostrophe, so it can unwire the electric shock from your apostrophe key. All right. This is something we did not cover in 156, so this will be new for, I think, most people. Or a review from your elementary school days, probably. Okay, possessive nouns. So if we want to show that a noun has possession of something or owns something, we need to add something to the end of the noun. And what we add depends on how the end of the noun is spelled and if it's a singular or plural noun. So I have this chart here. I have this chart sort of in the order of most often to most rare, okay? So most of the time, it's a singular noun that does not end in S. And you just add apostrophe S. So the example is the dinner of the dog, one dog, singular. So you just say dog apostrophe S to make it possessive, dog's dinner. Next down, what if it's a plural ending in S? Because as we recall from last week, most of our plurals, if they're not irregular, end in S because we either had add S, ES, IES. So in this case, it's the dinner of the dogs. Got more than one dog. So this is sort of the weird one. You just put apostrophe at the end, nothing else, no extra S. So it's just dogs, apostrophe. Do we pronounce these differently? Dogs, dogs. No, we don't. So if I'm talking to you, how do you know from just my speaking if I'm talking about the dinner of one dog or the dinner of more than one dog? You don't. You need more context. All right, getting more weird. If it's a singular noun, but it happens to end in S, a lot of these are personal nouns, proper nouns, names of people, like Chris. So we want to say the hat of Chris. Well, here we have two options. Both are legal as far as grammar rules are concerned. We're going to talk about this in more detail. You can either say just the apostrophe or apostrophe S. Either is, as far as grammar rules are concerned, acceptable. Do we pronounce them differently? Not really. Chris's hat, Chris's hat. And then kind of the most weird one, it's a plural, but it doesn't end in S. So these one would be some of our irregular noun plurals. The rights of the people. It's just add apostrophe S, the people's rights. So here's a key thing. Another way to think of it, everything to the left of the apostrophe is the owning noun. This is key. I want you to remember this. Let's look at all the examples. To the left of the apostrophe is just dog, singular, right? To the left of the apostrophe is dogs. More than one dog's the owner. To the left of the apostrophe is either Chris or Chris. And to the left of the apostrophe is people. This is going to be critical going forward for you to remember that. When you're trying to form the possessive form, make sure that whatever the owning noun is, that's on the left of your apostrophe. Now I have this chart. I like this chart because it's cute, but it's got some issues. I don't know if I'm going to keep using it. But anyway, be careful. See what they did there with the be? So if it's a regular single possessive, like a B, one B, then it's apostrophe S. Hive belongs to one B. If it's just one girl, the girl, apostrophe S, one girl. But if it's a bunch of B's, again, the owning noun has to be to the left of the apostrophe. So B's here has to be to the left of it. And you just put the apostrophe. More than one girl. Left of the apostrophe, girls. No S afterwards, right? Okay. But what if the singular noun already ends in S? So we're gonna get into this right here. This example says, well, if it's a regular old common noun, go ahead and add the apostrophe and the S, like a walrus. A walrus is a common noun. It happens to end in S, so we'd say the walrus is tusked. However, these folks who made this chart say if it's a proper noun, just the apostrophe. So for Chris's hat, he would just say Chris's with just the apostrophe. Okay. I have two problems with this chart. One is that they're giving you this as if it's just gospel. That's the rule. As we're going to see, that's not the rule. One way you can do it, because as we mentioned here, you can do it either way. Either way, you couldn't be marked wrong on a test for doing it either way. The second problem I have with this is they just go right and say plural possessives, all of them. But we know for a fact that if it's a plural that doesn't end in S, that's different. So I think this is a little bit too oversimplified. But it's cute. You get the idea. Okay, so let's talk about singular nouns ending in S. Again, right? That's the one where we have singular ending in S. Options. We have two options we can do. Which one do we do? Okay. So yeah, you may have noticed that in the rules box above, I said you could say either one. But in the chart above, they're making a distinction between if it's a common noun or a proper noun. Which way to go? So what's the rule? Well, the answer is that either apostrophe S or just apostrophe is correct in any case as far as the grammar rules are concerned. Here's my segue. In addition to grammar rules, we also have grammar styles. And different styles say do different things. So in this chart, they chose this style, not a rule. Okay. So there's all kinds of different styles. I have all kinds of books here. These are my grammar style books. Let's see. If you were born after 1995, most of these books are older than you. Okay, so this first book, which we saw last semester, Church's book, The Elements of Grammar, this is more like a rule book, not so much a style book. And as per that, what Margaret says is either way is correct. And she does not elect to go on and give you any style hints. It's just, look, this is a rule book on grammar. The rule is either apostrophe or apostrophe S. And then we get into the style books. So this is probably the #1 style book that everybody in the world has, Strunk and White. Some people just call it. It's the Elements of Style is the name, but most people just call it the Strunk and White. Interesting side note, White, E.B. White, he wrote Charlotte's Web. You know, the story about the spider and the pig, radiant pig. So I think like most people in the world probably go with this. And what they say is they don't care what the final consonant is, apostrophe S, just apostrophe S. So the positive one, I like that because it just gets rid of one more weird case. It's like all these are apostrophe S except this one. So I like it for that. Okay. But then we also have the other one that I think most people use, and you may have used this if you took any kind of English classes, the MLA handbook, Modern Language Association. Yes, Modern Language Association. And they aren't as cut and dried about it. They say, well, it depends. It depends. They're making kind of the distinction that they make in this chart. It says, well, normally it's apostrophe S. I don't care what the ending of the letter is, even if it's S, apostrophe S, but if it's a proper noun, only the apostrophe. So they're going with what the chart does. And that's probably why the chart writer did that, because most English teachers use this book. And then we have the truly weird. You would think this would be the one that we would use. Business grammar, style, and usage. And they say, well, it depends on what the next word starts with. We don't want too many sibilant sounds in a row. And I think that's just goofy. So I'm not suggest that. So I know sometimes this is like, come on, just tell me what to do. But it's English. I can't just tell you what to do. This is a style thing. So what should you do? Well, if your workplace has a style, either that they've invented themselves or they're pointing to one of these books. The one I don't have, which is also a common one, is the Associated Press. So it's like for reporters, newspaper reporters. If they have a style and they're saying use this style, then you need to use that style. If they don't have one, which, you know, unless it's a big corporation will have probably a style guide and a bunch of like word templates you should use for everything. But if it's just like a regular business in town or something, they're not going to have a style guide. You're free to decide yourself what style you want to use. But whatever you pick, stick with it, right? Don't mix and match. Okay, so that's that. So inanimate nouns can be possessive. You may not think that's the case, but you know, if we recall about our nouns, they have a gender, right? Male, female, neutral, or inanimate. So yeah, it seems obvious for the male, female, and neutral that it's an animal or a person, so they can own things, right? But inanimate nouns can also have ownership. Here's some examples: a day's work, a week's holiday, book's title, chair's leg, things like that. And those can even be abstract nouns like freedom, freedom's price, justice's scales, love's expression, democracy's principles. So while you can do that, I suggest that you don't, because I at least find those kind of awkward and hard to understand. So I would recommend, instead of making those inanimate nouns possessive, just write it out. So instead of saying a day's work, say the work of a day, or the holiday of the week, or the distance of a mile. Just write it out. That's just, I know that we're always going for the fewer number of words, whatever, but we're also going for clarity. This is, I think, clearer than, like, the principles of democracy to me is clearer than democracy's principles. It just seems awkward. Okay, so that's inanimate nouns. Now, what about if we have a noun phrase, which is two or more nouns? So this depends on whether they own the thing together or they each own separately. We call these compound possessives. Here's some examples. We watched Carly and Jesse's band play. Now, were there two bands? Was there a band of Carly's and a band of Jesse's? Well, it just says band singular. So it seems to me this is just one band that both Carly and Jesse own. So in that case, we do not put the apostrophe on the first one, put it on the last one. And this goes back to our same rule about the owner is to the left of the apostrophe. So here, the owner is both Carly and Jesse. Here's the second example. That's the soccer team and the field hockey team's field. So what we're saying here is there's not two fields, there's only one field. They share ownership. So to the left of the apostrophe is the owner. So everybody's the owner, right? So that's the first case where they both together own it. But what if they each own a separate thing? We visited the science teachers and the art teachers' rooms. So notice rooms, plural. So there's two rooms. They're not sharing a room. The science teacher owns a room and the art teacher owns a room. So again, same rule, owner to the left of the apostrophe. So we have an owner, which is the art teacher, and we have an owner, which is the science teacher. They don't own it together. Here's another example. Julie's and Juanita's cats are black. We can do this either way. So this example, owner to the left, so Julie's an owner and Juanita is an owner separately. So that would be this case, right? Julie, there happens to be two cats. They happen to both be black, but Julie owns a cat and Juanita owns a cat. If they were together and they've had joint ownership of these cats, again, ownership to the left. Julie and Juanita together own these cats. So we don't put the apostrophe on Julie. I just want to reiterate this thing. Everything to the left of the apostrophe is the only one. That's how you tell. Okay, what about hyphenated nouns like the mother-in-law? Same rule. Everything to the left of the apostrophe is the only noun. So we wouldn't say mothers-in-law. It's not just every mother that owns it, it's the mother-in-law. So we put it at the end. So the mother-in-law all together is the only. So I know that's a little tricky. Any questions on that? Okay. Now let's talk about possessive pronouns. Yeah, we've seen this chart a million times, but whatever. Hey, I'll bring it up. The possessive pronouns. See any apostrophes? No apostrophes. That's because it's baked in. The ownership is baked in already. They're already possessive. They never take an apostrophe. So common mistake. The word it's and it's and it is, right? It is a contraction. It's without the apostrophe is the possessive pronoun. So people always make this mistake. They go, oh, possessiveness, apostrophe. So IT apostrophe S for something owning it. No. Pronouns have their ownership baked in already. It apostrophe S is a contraction for it is. So the way you can always tell, or the trick, is if you can substitute it is into the sentence and it still makes sense, then the apostrophe S one is the correct word. It's the contraction that you're going for. For example, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It is a beautiful day in the neighborhood. That makes sense. As long as we're talking about this, people getting their possessive pronouns confused with other words, there, and there are often confused. THEIR is the possessive pronoun, no apostrophe. THERE is an adverb. It can also be a pronoun, noun, or adjective. Refers to a place. It's over there. And THEY apostrophe RE is a contraction. Remember, the apostrophe is used in two ways. What we're doing today, possessiveness and contractions. So this contraction is a contraction for they are, same kind of thing. If you can substitute they are and it still makes sense, then that's the one you're going for. Example, they're going to the park. They are going to the park. Okay, must be the contraction. All right, we can do this one in class. I'm going to give you some meanings, and I want you to create the possessive noun form. I guess I'll do this with everybody. I'll do it, Steve, with you. Sure, why not? I'll do it together. All right, so we're going to copy and paste all this stuff into the text box, and then we're going to answer the questions. Put it in the text box. Let me make this bigger. Let me just make that smaller. Bigger. All right. So if I want to say something that means the toy of the cat, how do I make that cat possessive? What would be my sentence to make it possessive?
The cat's toy.
The cat, and because we cannot tell in spoken language which one you're going for, can you spell it out for me? CAT, just like that? Or like that?
Apostrophe.
Yes. Right, that's our just normal everyday case, right? The cat's toy.
Can you make it a little bigger?
Little bigger, yes. Better? Okay. Oh, yeah. What about this one? The toy of the cats, plural cats. What do we do there?
The apostrophe after the S.
Yes, because the owner has to be to the left of the apostrophe. So in this case, the owner is cats. Do I add another S?
No.
Spell check is already telling you no. Okay. That was sort of our first two cases. About the toy of the children. Now, what's interesting about the word children? Is it singular or plural?
Plural.
No.
Plural. Oh, so plural stuff. I just put apostrophe at the end, right? No, because this does not end in S. That was our third rule. So we would say the children, right? Because we did this one because it ended in S, but this is, even though it's plural, it's an irregular plural, does not end in S. Okay, here I'm saying the toys of Jill and the toys of Jack. So two separate owners of two separate toys. What do I do? Yeah, I'll just kind of start off. And you tell me what I should do. Do I, so probably, yeah, right?
Uh,
Toy, but do I also put it here or do I not? Owner, the left of the apostrophe, right? So
Yeah.
is it owned by Jill and Jack?
No.
No.
It's mhm.
So Amy, what should I do?
Apostrophe S because it's two different people.
That is correct. Jill owns a toy and Jack owns toys. They don't own them together. All right. We do the opposite. The toys of Jill and Jack. So here they do own them together. So what's different?
They own it together.
They own it together. So everything to the left of the apostrophe is the owner. So in this case, Jill and Jack are the owner. So I do not put an extra apostrophe S on Jill because we want both of them together to be to the left of the apostrophe. The toy of the son-in-law. I'll start it off and you tell me how to fill in the blank. So where do I put it? Apostrophe S, where do I put it? Do I put it on the son or on the law? Who owns it? Nobody remembers?
Boss.
So if you remember on the plural noun thing with these compound noun ones, it kind of was the other way around. We would say sons-in-law because we put the plural on the primary noun. Here, it kind of, I mean, this is a different thing. This is possessive, not plural. So it doesn't have to be the same, but I'm just saying, like, it's the opposite because here we're saying everything to the left has to be the owner, and the owner is the son-in-law, not just a son. Okay. Mind blower. I'm messing with you here. Big time. The toy of Iris.
Iris's toy.
Okay. What do I do? Just apostrophe by itself or apostrophe S? Either is correct grammatically. This is where you have to decide what your style is going to be. So I can either do that or I can do that. All right. Now we have some sentences that we're going to edit. First one, the leopard cannot change its spots. What's wrong with that sentence? Nobody knows? What's this? Is that showing possession?
It's a contraction.
That is correct. That is a contraction for it is. So if I substitute it is, does it make sense? The leopard cannot change it is spots? That makes no sense. Well, that is wrong. How do we fix it? We want the pronoun, right? We want the possessive pronoun. Belongs to the leopard, but we're using a pronoun. Possessiveness is already baked in. We do not add apostrophes ever. Let's go on to the next one. Those are the business's paper clips. So we're trying to say the business is the owner. What do we do?
Add apostrophe.
Yeah, we don't add another S. That was the one, case for sure where we don't add apostrophe S, just apostrophe. Plural nouns ending in S. Okay, next one. I like to watch the People's Court on television. What's wrong with this? With people's? What kind of a noun is that? Well, without the S, people, that's irregular plural noun. So it's already plural. I want to make it possessive, just like so. So that's kind of these are kind of counterpoints to each other, right? This is a plural ending in S. This is a plural not ending in S. Those are their belongings. What's wrong with this sentence?
There.
The wrong there. Which one should I use?
A possessive noun.
Possessive pronoun. Yep. What about this one? These are their suitcases. What's wrong with that one?
Take off the there.
What kind of word is that?
They are.
There with the apostrophe, it's a contraction for they are. So if I substitute that in, does it make sense? These are, they are suitcases? Makes no sense. That's the wrong word. I used the wrong word. Same as the above. I just want the possessive pronoun, right? That is the father's-in-law legal right. What's wrong with this one?
The father's. It's supposed to be laws.
That is correct, because the owner has to be to the left of the apostrophe. It wasn't just any old father that was the owner, it's the father-in-law. The glasses are under the bottle's shelf. So this is kind of a weird example I made just to show that we can have two words that look very similar, like they're plural. Which one is the plural and which one is the possessive?
Glasses, plural.
Glasses is plural, and bottles is supposed to be possessive here. So it's the shelf that belongs to the bottles. So how do I make that into possessive?
Bottle. No.
It's a simple one. The root noun is just bottle. Doesn't have any funny thing or whatever. So
Just apostrophe. Oh,
apostrophe yes. If it ended in S, we'd have to say bottle, but the root noun is just bottle. We're trying to make it into possessive with the S. Okay, we watched Pebbles and Bam Bam's band play. What's wrong with this one? How many bands did we watch? One or more than one? We only watched one band play. So we didn't watch a band that was owned by Pebbles, and then we watched another band that was owned by Bam Bam. We watched one band that was jointly owned by Pebbles and Bam Bam. So knowing that, what's wrong with this sentence?
And then take off the S. No?
That one's right. Even though spell check just doesn't know who the heck
Yeah,
Bam is,
that's I was
right?
looking at that.
Yeah. Remember that the owner has to be to the left of the apostrophe. So the owner in this case is both Pebbles and Bam Bam. So having the apostrophe here is wrong. I'm going to say both Pebbles and Bam Bam together own this band. All right. You had a picture for this one. Took me a while to make that picture. Julie has a cat and Juanita has a cat. Julie and Juanita's cats are black. What's wrong with this sentence? Sort of the opposite of this one. Who are the owners? Do Julie and Juanita both together jointly own the cats? Well, no, I'm saying Julie has a cat and Juanita has a cat. So since we have to follow the rule, owner to the left of the apostrophe, we have two owners here, Julie and we have Juanita, both owners of their own cats. All right. And the last one, where I'm really gonna blow your mind. The irises are irises. What's wrong with this sentence? There's a lot wrong with this sentence. First of all, let me ask you, what kind of noun is that?
Yeah.
What kind of a noun is
Mm,
this word iris?
which is good.
Is that a proper noun? Common noun? In this sentence, the irises are irises. Well, let's compare it.
Proper? Is
Well,
it proper?
is it proper? The irises are irises. Well, a couple of hints here. If it were proper, I would have capitalized it, right? And it kind of doesn't make sense in this sentence.
I thought it was a name. Sorry.
It is a name over here. This is the proper noun. That's the regular noun. So these are just flowers. This is a person named Iris. I'm partial to this one because my wife's name is Iris. Okay, so knowing that this is the proper noun, it's capitalized, that's good. Knowing this is just a common noun, which noun are we trying to say has the ownership? Do the flowers own something or does Iris own something?
Iris.
The person or the flower? Who's owning here?
The person.
The person. So this is what we want to make possessive, not this. So right off the bat, nah, that's wrong. Take that out. Okay, but now there's still something wrong, which spell text is telling us. Do you remember last week? How do we make a plural of a noun that ends in a sibilant sound? So iris ends in the sibilant sound. What do we got to do? Yes. Okay, so now it's starting to make a little bit more sense. This is just a common noun, flowers, plural, right? So the irises, bunch of iris flowers. They belong to Iris. Okay, we're not done yet though. How do we make this into a possessive?
The irises are iris.
The irises are irises. How do we make irises, the person, be the owner? How do we make?
Apostrophe S?
So we know right off the bat that the owner has to be to the left of the apostrophe. So we know that the apostrophe at least has to be there. Iris is the one that owns them. Do we add an S or do we
No.
not? Yes.
No.
Depends on your style. This is one of those, right? Singular noun, ending in S, could be iris, could be irises. Which one do you like? That way or that way? Let's take a vote. How many people think that is better? You can just say yay, nay,
Yeah.
Karina likes that way better. Nobody on Zoom likes that way? Everybody on Zoom likes that way?
I actually like how it looks with apostrophe S more.
I kind of do too, and most of the guides that we're looking at say just stick with this. I like this for a couple of reasons. One is I think it models the pronunciation better. Irises. Irises? Seems like you should have more S's going on, right, for the pronunciation? And then for the second thing is it's just one less weird exception rule. It's like apostrophe S for everything except that one case of singular noun ending in S. Or sorry, plural noun ending in S. Okay, everybody got those?
I feel like once
Yeah.
you read it, it makes more sense. Like if you read it out loud, like the irises are irises, it
Yeah.
makes more sense, the apostrophe S.
Yeah, I agree, because it kind of, that's what it sounds like, right? Whereas if we just do this, it's like, well, it doesn't really sound like that.
Yeah.
So be careful with this sound things. If you play this through like the adaptive viewer thing and you have it speak to you, either in Canvas's speak thing or in Google's speak thing or in Word's speak thing, they get these wrong because they don't know. So they'll kind of just ignore the apostrophe. And then conversely, if you're using a voice to text thing to record, like the Google's text to speak or the Word thing, they will almost invariably do it this way. But again, it's not a rule, it's a style. All right. So let me, that's the wrong thing. That's the thing. Submit. Yay.
Question, Professor.
Mhm.
Or the box, the table you have there where it says Iris toy. So that would also be optional to
Right.
add.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. Option. You have your choice. What's your style there? Okay. Student view. So yeah, now that I'm back to the rule box. Yeah, if we just say, okay, let's do apostrophe S in those cases, we get rid of the or just this, then you see it's like almost everything is apostrophe S. You just have to worry about this one thing about plural ending in S. That's the only one you need to like, oh wait, that's a special one. No extra S in the end. But again, either one is correct. Do what you think. Okay. I think we did all that. Yeah. Any questions on any of that stuff? Practice, practice, practice. That's the only way to get this. Okay. So it's like we were just talking about. Here's your discussion for this week. I'm going to ask you which style do you think is best, right? So here I'm saying, look, we got these style books. They all say different things. I mean, if we could say there's one common theme, it's apostrophe S, pretty much. For singular nouns that already end in S, wait a minute. You have to figure out what style. So I'm asking you in your discussion, which style would you use? And why do you think that? Would you pronounce it different? So that's your discussion. There's no right or wrong answer. What you think of? Okay, so that's all there is for today, except that this week you have exam number 1. As I said, timed, only one attempt. So worth a lot of your points. We only have 3 of these for the whole course. So these are super important. You make sure you get this in before the end of class or end of the day of next class. 180 minutes extended for those who have accommodations. And what else can I say? If it gets to be like next Wednesday and you haven't done this yet, and you're like, oh, I'm not ready, do it anyway. Some points are better than no points. I mean, the whole point of these things is to find out where you need more practice. Okay? And that's pretty much it. What did we learn? How to do persuasive message flowing downwards, upwards. Persuasive techniques in advertising, indirect versus direct strategy scenarios, possessive nouns and pronouns, and exam 1.
Bye, thank you.
Bye. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.